A lot of people were really angry when Luigi's Mansion first came out at the GameCube's launch, pretty much exclusively because it wasn't a Mario game. Up until that point, it had been tradition for a Mario game to come out at Nintendo console launches. Super Mario Bros. Carried the NES, Super Mario World carried the Super Nintendo, and Super Mario 64 carried the Nintendo 64. But despite the Mario 128 teaser video, there was no such Mario presence at the GameCube launch. Instead, there was the brother that no one really cared about, with a vacuum cleaner. People were not particularly pleased. Thankfully, we can put that all aside now and appreciate Luigi's Mansion for what it is. Not only a great game on its own merits, but frankly, the game the GameCube needed at launch. I've talked in other videos about what makes a great launch game. To summarize, you're looking for a game that shows off what makes your new console cool and interesting. You want to differentiate your system from your competitors, but you also want to show what's technologically possible, especially if it's going to be better than what your competitors are offering. And while we couldn't have known it at the time, this would be the last generation where Nintendo really tried to be technologically competitive. And it shows here in Luigi's Mansion, with its functional mirrors, excellent cloth physics, and really impressive lighting. It also served as a great demonstration of what made the GameCube unique, namely its analog trigger with multiple digital signal points, and its C-Stick, many of which had their lifespan shortened significantly by this very game. Like any good launch game, Luigi's Mansion shows off exactly what Nintendo had in mind for their new console. In this game, Luigi wins a house from a contest he never entered, and that house turns out to be haunted. With the aid of a scientist, he finds that the mansion, Luigi runs around the house, vacuuming up ghosts with a special vacuum cleaner. In order to reveal the ghosts, you first need to shine a flashlight on them. The game's ghost encounters rely heavily on combining use of the new trigger and C-Stick by having the amount of suction of the vacuum controlled by the trigger and requiring you to violently jerk the C-Stick in the opposite direction of the ghost you're trying to vacuum. The way you navigate the mansion is also an interestingly rare example of Nintendo taking inspiration from the rest of the industry. It's weirdly evocative of Resident Evil. You're traversing a large mansion, constantly backtracking after getting keys or some new ability, and clearing out rooms, albeit of ghosts instead of zombies. But you don't feel as lost as you do in the earlier Resident Evil games. The map is excellent and does a great job of showing you which rooms you have or have not explored, as well as rooms you've just acquired keys for and can now unlock. It's basically the RE2 remake map, years ahead of its time. The game also has a really neat puzzle aspect to it. While most ghosts you encounter can just be taken care of with your normal tools, sometimes you'll come across ghosts that have something special you need to do. By pulling out a device the game calls the Game Boy Horror that looks a lot like a Game Boy Color, you can read their hearts and get a clue as to what you need to do. This puzzle aspect really helps to mix things up every once in a while. I think the game would probably be really boring if it was just the same ghosts being caught in the same way the entire time. Luigi's Mansion is still very much worth playing now. This is one of those rare times when Nintendo tried to do something new, and every time they do that, it's always at least fascinating in its own weird way. And most of the time, they hit it out of the park. And I count Luigi's Mansion as something new because while it may share a lot of Mario characters, it's a wholly different game. And I think mechanically, it's still a lot of fun too. It holds up in a way a lot of other games from this generation don't. And that's because, quite frankly, it's a Nintendo game. And their commitment to simple, timeless gameplay always holds up really well.